how else are you using technology in your context right now?
Yeah, in my context, like some of the things that were working in my smaller church did not bear out to be as effective in my large church. Probably one of the most useful tools that I think every church needs to be on right now is utilizing text messaging.
Okay.
So
Yep.
SMS for communication. You have to do that responsibly, but it has been a big boost in allowing us to effectively communicate, to let people know what's going on in the church, to get people to engage in events or to address needs, being able to send out mass communication to our members through text messaging. And I think that, email seems to be having a bit of a resurgence. For a while there. It was kind of like, ugh. But our email newsletter, which was in place before I got here, but it's a very significant part of how we communicate. We have like 72% open rate on our email newsletter of 2,000 contacts.
Whoa.
Like that's
Excuse me?
yeah,
Like,
it's
hold on. Just
yeah.
for okay, I just want to interrupt here for anybody out there
Go
that
ahead.
does not do anything with email newsletters. That number shouldn't exist. Okay, that
Mm-mm.
is way higher than just about any newsletter that you will ever see.
Nope.
So, yeah, that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. And I was floored. I honestly thought, because when I got here and hopefully no one that does the newsletter at church will ever see this, but it's not it's an old style newsletter. It's still
Yeah.
graphic heavy. It's all the things you're not supposed to do in a newsletter, but it goes out every week. So I was asking them, because I was just thinking about, usage. What are we doing? How are we communicating? And I was just thinking, like, there's no way that this is actually effective. And when they opened MailChimp and showed me those numbers, I was like, my goodness, okay, we're not touching this. We're not changing a thing.
Don't
We're doing
mess it.
nothing different.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
no. So it's really, for me, the biggest focus for me now is, because I'm in such a large church, we're the average attendance 650, membership of 1,200. I'm really looking at how can I best engage with the membership as effectively as possible, because I don't know how things are down under these days, but here in America, since COVID, church attendance is kind of like a once every 6 to 8 weeks kind of thing for a lot of people. Even if we're trying to do something and we're trying to move the church, and we've been on a rollout of our mission and vision here at the church for a long time now, going since last March, almost a year. We've been working on renewing and rolling out our vision. It takes a long time to get everybody to hear something in the building. And so being able to utilize other tools to help augment that communication when you're trying to move people along is huge. So that's where most of my energy goes, is how do we do that? How do we get directly to someone to tell them what we need them to know? And we've been finding that more and more effective. It has its little tweaks and whatever. You'll find that some things will work for some types of events or some types of communication. It doesn't work so great for others, but that's helped us out quite a bit.
Mm. Oh, that's very interesting. And you mentioned the difference in things that work well in larger churches versus smaller churches. Is there like a general pattern to that? Like, can you give a little bit more context around that? What things work typically well in larger and what works typically well in smaller?
I couldn't tell you honestly. My experience. I've pastored 6 churches, and so I couldn't tell you like that there's a pattern that, like, in this size church, this is going to work better. What I have found, like in my first district, which I was in during COVID, and where I pivoted from podcasting to start doing video and start trying to figure out how to, leverage social media. My recorded sermons, my long form video was, for my church. So, I had a 3 church district that had a grand total of like 70 members. And, during COVID time, we were getting 500-600, views, and like long time, like not just
Wow.
3-second views, but like we were getting good solid watch time on our videos during that time, which was huge. On one of the church's Facebook pages, the church had 15 people, and we were getting, a couple hundred views a Sabbath on that. And again, long term, like the vanity metrics or whatever. And that really worked well in that context, in that time. To be delivering that long form piece of content. And from that, we were able to see, some traction begin to happen within our local community of people finding it because it's being shared around or whatever. But then I moved. So, which is how it goes. In my next church, which was more of a, it was we were right around 100 attending. That was where I really, I was trying a lot of things, because I was also the communication director for the conference. And so we were going kind of like everything in the kitchen sink. Like what would it look like if we went full, like full funnel at this from a local church perspective? And so we were running, ads on social media. We had online Bible studies going on. We had podcasts going on, meager website. YouTube was just kind of But from that, within a year, like we had 6 people show up in our church, and like that ecosystem had caught them.
Yep.
Right. So they would come across a reel on Facebook, and then they would hit our website, and then they would, link to our YouTube, and they'd start watching our sermons, and they show up and they'd be like, yeah, I saw this reel, and then I've been following along for a few months, and I just wanted to come. So that was really, fun to watch and kind of utilize there in terms of like, just from like a more of a church growth perspective. The discipleship component, like if you want to talk about like the personal ministry component of it, social has been, and this is like the great bane of my existence right now, which is I don't have a huge following. One of my favorite quotes, a mutual friend of ours, Justin Q. I was on his podcast a couple years ago, and he made the comment at the end. He's like, the reason I wanted to have you on is because you don't have a huge following. So at the time, I think I had like 400 Instagram followers, and now I've beat my brains against the wall for a year and a half, and I got to 1,000. Yeah. But from that, I'm able to do substantive ministry within my local context and beyond, right? So, my goal is really with social to just have a touch point with people. And so putting out that content has enabled me to stay connected with people. It also enabled me to connect with church members that, like, while I was in the church, who I couldn't connect with in person, that, just because of their personal issues, they're introverted, they have social anxiety, whatever, like they've had bad experiences with a pastor, but then they can connect online. And, because of my style, I'm pretty open, I'm pretty authentic. And so they were able to kind of build that relationship. And then that actually was able to transition into me being able to actually establish that pastoral relationship with them in real life, just from that digital touch point. So yeah, it's kind of a little bit of everything. And then from there, like I said, now I'm focusing more on like direct communication just with my church, but my role is somewhat different. I'm not responsible for evangelism. I'm not really responsible for social media in the church. So those, my needs have changed. And so that's kind of how it evolves. So I think it's always what's going to work in your context. I don't think that there's necessarily a right answer. I mean, there's things that work, like there's stuff that you can do, but I feel like, especially within the Adventist context, so often we're just kind of out here on our own. Like, I'm very fortunate to be in a church where I'm on a staff of 5 people, but that's not really the thing. Resources are limited, workload is high, right? So it's just what is going to actually augment the ministry rather than become the focus of the ministry, because it's very easy for this to get kind of carried away. It's like everything I'm doing is focused on social, and then I can't actually like pastor in context. And so you gotta balance.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Blue Vineyard podcast. For more episodes, information about our services and more, please visit bluevineyard.com.